everyone, and welcome back to the show. My name is Christoph Defo, and I'm here to tell you unequivocally that it is too fucking late. This is a video series in which I opine about the state of the world and the state of my life in approximately 10 minutes. In this episode, I talk to you about my losing battle against Dogshit. I talk to you about how the United States Supreme Court has gone completely batshit. And I will briefly plug the Radical Secular podcast, which is hot shit. But first, let's talk Thanksgiving. How was it for you? Are you one of the Americans who stayed home and helped keep the transmission levels down, statistically speaking? Or did you go out and do whatever the fuck you wanted? Either way, glad that you're here. Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I really do. Lindsay and I, that's my wife, we had a really nice time. We ate, obviously, we relaxed, we watched football, but it was just a great moment to sort of check out, turn off the brain, and just be like, holy shit, like, you know, it's nice to not think about fucked up things all the time. But football. So we watch football, and football is really awesome. I'm a big New York Giants fan. I'm also a fan of football, the game, like more generally. I think it's so awesome to see unbelievable athletes do what they do and what they're so committed to doing. But I also simultaneously hate the football industrial complex, and all of those three ideas can exist in the same person. I can attest to that. In my article that's coming out next week that I'm writing for the Just Words Fallacy publication, I talk about this stuff, and I talk about it from the experience of being, from the perspective that is, of being a person of color, a black man who grew up around all white people. So I think it'll be an interesting article. Look out for it. Link will be in the bio, Check it out. Okay, and the second item is related to last week's Supreme Court decision, which invalidated Governor Cuomo's executive order. It was an executive order that imposed restrictions on gatherings given COVID-19. There were some very upset religious organizations, though. So in this case, a Catholic group, the Catholic Diocese of, I think, Brooklyn, and also an Orthodox Jewish synagogue, filed in the lower courts, the lower federal courts, so that we call it the district court. They filed to get the restrictions lifted as respect to them. The idea was that, or the argument was that, the restrictions violated their First Amendment rights to exercise their religion. The Supreme Court took the case. They ultimately ruled in favor of the religious groups. But this was not a decision on the merits, and that's really important, right? So this decision does not conclusively decide whether or not COVID-19 restrictions on gatherings or whatever violate religious groups' First Amendment rights. Instead, the religious groups were seeking out what we call injunctive relief, right? They filed this case, and they appealed to the Supreme Court because they wanted to maintain the status quo while this issue fights its way through the federal court system. So to put this in layman's terms, right, here what we're seeing is a religious groups that believe that their right to practice has been hampered substantially by these COVID-19 restrictions on gatherings. It keeps them from protecting their religion and violates the First Amendment. That's their argument. And so while that question is being hammered out and figured out in the federal courts, they think that the restrictions shouldn't apply to them. That's what this case is about. The Supreme Court agreed with them, but that doesn't mean the Supreme Court agrees that more generally that the restrictions violate their First Amendment rights. Those are two different questions. So let's not get our boxers or our panties in a bunch quite yet. Still, it's terrifying. This is a reminder of the fact that elections have consequences, often terrifying consequences, right? The Supreme Court heard two similar cases earlier in the year before we lost Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and the court came out a different way. We are seeing a steady erosion of the distinction between of church and state. I think it's important to note here too that Cuomo, in his brief, by his lawyers, but still his brief correctly said that the COVID-19 regulations at issue already give religious organizations special treatment relative to secular organizations, right? But for those religious organizations, that's not enough, right? They don't want to be treated like similar to other organizations that matter. They want special treatment. They want to be on a platform. And this is the sort of thing we talk about and rail against on the Radical Secular podcast. Please check out our podcast. Link is probably right here. I'm probably pointing at it right now, but it's definitely in the bio. I'm a co-host there. Please check it out. But we always talk about this creeping theocracy and the fact that religion gets a pass. It gets to hang out and be powerful without being accountable. And that's a really serious problem. If you should care about theocracy. You should care about a world in which no one sect, no one religion gets to dictate how everyone else in a country lives their life. And the Supreme Court telegraphed in this decision, even though it wasn't on the merits, they telegraphed that they would be on the side of theocracy, and that is absolutely terrifying. Okay, and the third item for discussion today is my ongoing battle against dog shit. Now, really, this is a story about me trying to maintain my home, maintain my house, my yard, in the wake of the onslaught of dog shit that is part of my daily life. So, people walk their dogs. I love dogs, by the way. I am a dog person. I'm also a cat person, but I'm a dog person. If we lived in a more hospitable environment for dogs, we would absolutely have one, and I hope we do have a dog one day. But I don't like dog shit, and I certainly don't like other people's dogs' shit, and I don't like it particularly when it's in my yard. People are not great about cleaning it up, and when they do a half-assed job, and meanwhile, this kind of dog shit, while I'm trying to do my maintenance, ends up in my shoes, it ends up on my clothes, it ends up all over my machines. I have to hose them off after every single time I use them. It's disgusting. Here is some footage of me doing maintenance with not too much dog shit. What's right is wrong, what's gone is gone, what's clear and pure is not so sure. Our promises become a lie, all that's been right corrupts and died. All the purified If it's real for me, do I have to prove it to you? Why do revelations fade to cold blue untruths? It's all so relative. Okay, and here is why I brought this up, because I think maintenance really matters. Meaningful innovation is always built on prior systems. It must be, right? And prior systems require maintenance. And so, unfortunately, we live in an environment, in a society that exalts innovators. And that's good, actually, right? We really should encourage innovation and new ideas. It's critical, in fact. But we should also recognize that none of that innovation happens without the people that keep the underlying system functioning, right? We can go a lot further with just keeping our current system functioning than we could with just innovating without the current system. So that's really important. And meanwhile, certainly there are garbage collectors, right? There are people who maintain facilities and all that sort of, and maintain airplanes and maintain buses. That is super, super important. But think also about the folks who maintain databases and servers and all the things that keep the internet running. Like, this stuff matters, and none of the innovation that we exalt and care so much about is possible without these folks that are doing this hard work. So that's point one. Point two, that there's like maintenance on a personal level is super important, right? In my experience, and I'm talking to you as a person who has recovered from really serious drug addiction and also, growing up in a cult. And I can tell you that personal fulfillment and the ability to have some level of equanimity in the face of challenges depends on being able to develop a philosophy of life, a way of being that works. And those are steps forward. Those are steps forward that need to continue to happen over the course of a lifetime. But it's also critical to maintain the gains that one has, because none of going forward matters if you can't maintain what you already have. I mean, this is true if you're in the military, if you're in a corporation, or wherever you are, or if you're a person, an individual. So again, this kind of stuff is really important. Maintenance. And with that, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And if you are watching this, remember, it's already too late for you to fight back.